Oh yes, welcome to another episode in our machine learning series. Okay, so the topic we are going to dwell upon today is understanding virtual environments in Anaconda. As always, I'm Victor and I'll be your guide in today's tutorial. What I have for you today is just very simple. We will start by answering the obvious question of what a virtual environment is, followed by what Anaconda Navigator is and how does it look like. Subsequently, we look at how we create virtual environments using the command line interfaces versus how we do same using your graphic user interfaces. That means how I actually create that using my Anaconda Navigator. Now, how about creating these environments with pre-installed packages? And how do I determine the current environment in which I am in? How do I know if the environment is activated or not? How do I deactivate an environment? Or simply put, what happens when I deactivate versus when I delete an environment? That will lead us to viewing the list of all the environments. Say I have deactivated, I have deleted an environment. I want to know whether that environment still exists or is been kind of rooted out from the directory. And that will lead me to the concept of making an exact copy or a replica of an environment. In that case, we use the keyword called cloning. And we wind up by looking at the demo section, in which we will do a hands-on section on both the command line interfaces and then using your graphic user interface. Without wasting much of our time, let's just go by definition and try to understand what a virtual environment is. So you see, whenever we speak about virtual environment, we are actually talking about a tool that helps us to keep dependencies required by different projects separate by creating isolated Python virtual environments for them. Now, you might not understand this, okay? So let's exemplify this. Let's say you're working on a project, okay? So you have a project that requires you to have different versions of Python. Say your college project, okay, revolves around what? Your college projects revolve around, say, Python, maybe like PyPython version 3.6. And then where you are interning with maybe Oracle. So your internship, okay, your guide asks you to install what? Python 3.8. Now, mind you, you have installed all the necessary libraries. You have installed all your necessary libraries in this. Say you're working on a computer vision project, you have everything installed here. And this is, you are actually doing internship on web development, okay? So you have all libraries again related to what? Web development, okay? Now, to ensure that there's no dependency issue, there's no conflict, right, between these two packages, you need to create virtual environments, okay? Now, you know the concept of VMware, right? Yes? So VMware is exactly what a virtual environment does. Okay, let me say a loose analogy, because in virtual environment, we are not installing OSs and we are not installing other packages. So we only focus on applications that are run on the virtual machine, right? So in this case, this virtual machine was actually created to solve the issue of what? Dependencies, where I don't want conflicts between what? Two Python versions. Does that make sense? So you see, this virtual environment allows you to manage Python packages for different projects. And that was what I tried highlighting here. So you can actually install this virtual environment by using some commands. But the best way to install this virtual environment is by using what? Your Anaconda prompt. So let's get to this obvious question. What is this Anaconda actually? So the first time I heard of Anaconda, and I must be plain with this, okay? I must be as honest as possible. So the first time I learned of Anaconda, I thought it's kind of a gigantic snake, kind of a pretty huge snake, right? So that is capable of swallowing, humans and all whatnot that it comes its way. So, but Anaconda Navigator here is actually what? A distribution of what? The Python and R programming languages for scientific community or for scientific computing. Now, it aims to simplify this package management and deployment. Now, you just saw in the previous slide that you manage packages, right, and deploy them in your virtual environment, right? But how do you manage, I beg your pardon, that you create packages, right? So trying to separate your packages, okay, or your project folders into segments, avoiding conflict or dependency issues with other projects, right? So for you to do that now, you need to manage this properly, and that is where Anaconda comes in handy. So Anaconda is a distribution of your what? Python and your R programming languages that is aimed for your scientific computing. What is the sole objective of this? The sole objective is to simplify package management and deployment. And whenever you hear of data scientists, they use mostly packages. They work on your Windows, your OS and stuff. So what I'm trying to say is this: Anaconda has distribution in form of what? All operating system, because Anaconda, it is what? Open source. So you don't need to bother about the word operating system which your system runs on. Now, having said that, let me give you a loose analogy of this Anaconda. You know your Microsoft Office suite, MS Office suite, right? So in Office suite, what do you have? Can you tell me? So in MS Office suite, you have your word processor, MS Word, right? So you have what? Your spreadsheet, MS Excel. Then you have your what? Presentation, MS PowerPoint. I will use PPT for short. Then you have one, MS PageMaker, Publisher. Yes? Okay. So you also have your database management system, which is your what? MS Access, MS InfoPath, MS Project, etc. Now, did you notice that these are specific applications, right? But they are bundled together as a distribution. So this is the distribution. Does that make sense now? So in this distribution, all these application packages are bundled together, all right? So when you purchase, say, MS Office Suite 2016, you are purchasing this alongside with all these distributions. So does that make sense? So that is why in Anaconda, you will have a distribution that looks like this. Yes? So you see, this is the interface. So this is how your interface looks like. So you could literally see here, I have the command prompt.exe. Now you can see here that it has turned into, the button has turned into launch. Okay, now you see GlueVis, you see IBM Watson Studio or Cloud, you see your Jupyter Lab, you see this is the one we are going to work on most of the time, your Jupyter Notebook. And you can actually see even Python also. This is purely for your what? Python development. And you can see the community, you see your Qt code, you see your Spider. Most times we toggle between Jupyter Notebook and what? Spider. Now you can also see this VS Code. So all these application packages comes together as a bundle called what? You guessed it, Anaconda Navigator. Now, having addressed that, let's look into the next thing which we have for you today. So the next is this. You know, this is done. So the next is this. We'll be looking into creating an environment in command line interface. So I use CL for short, which is command line interface. So can you help me expand GUI? Okay, this is your graphics. Okay, you can say graphic user interface, it doesn't matter. User interface. Now, what exactly this is telling you? Here I have to write commands, but here it is kind of simplified. So I can actually use drag and drop, yes, without paying much attention to what is really happening. So something I saw which actually, caught my attention. If you look closer, you see this. What gives people the feeling of power? One is money. You see the bar? Okay. Another is status. See there? Another one, using the terminal in front of what? Non-programmers. This caught my attention. But the one that triggered it more was using a terminal in front of a programmer who doesn't know how to use the terminal. Now, for most of you that are watching that are not from computer science background, I will show you what we mean by a terminal. So a terminal, just think of it like a dark command prompt, okay? Usually dark background with some commands. Okay, you just have to type in the stuff to perform a particular or sequence of actions. So that is what we call a terminal. For most of us, and that was the concept of Windows, most of us just perform most of our activities by just doing drag and drop and copy paste. There's nothing wrong in that. But majority of us that are from the computer science background, or that are from, yes, you have a clue on what I'm talking about. So you see, you feel like, whoa, you are a genius when you're able to run some commands, okay, in front of your fellow students or your fellow colleague who doesn't know how to use the terminal, right? So that really stood out there, and I was like, oh, wow, that's this actually. So by the way, I copied this. I found this, I think, online. So I hope there's no copyright issue here. So anyway, so let's move to the next thing, okay? So what we have here is, now we have created this environment, right? Can we actually create this environment with pre-installed? That means when we are creating this environment, we need to install some applications, right? So that when we create an environment, say called my EMV, what do we call there? We called it Lab 1. So this Lab 1, we should have Python version 3.6 and Scientific Python this much, okay, of this flavor. Now, in most cases, what happens now is, by the time we start executing this, you might notice that this version of SciPy supports maybe a higher version of Python. Okay, so in that case, you get an error message which you simply debug by just a simple Google search will solve the problem. So we do this hands-on. Okay, now that we have created this environment, we need to know the current environment. So by default, let's say we have base is usually our root environment. Okay, so base and some stuff there. Now we create an environment called lab. Now this lab is still not our current environment. Until we activate the environment, it is not current. So how do you know the current environment? Now, if you say, use this command, conda info envs, okay, or you use this conda env list, you will see list of environments, but you see one with star, asterisk. So the one with asterisk is your what? Current environment. Does that make sense? Now we have been able to determine that current environment. We now go to activate this environment, right? So I just told you now you created an environment called Lab 1. It's still dormant until you activate it. So what do you say now? You say conda activate Lab 1. Got that? Conda activate what? Lab 1. So if you remember, we created an environment and we just activated that environment, right? So that environment becomes our what? Current environment. And you see asterisk by the side of it towards the left. Okay? Now this is done. The next thing we need to do is this. You see, I don't need the environment anymore. Say I'm done with the project. I'm done with that project and I need to kind of deactivate the environment, right? Now that leads us to this question. I no longer need the environment. I am done with this. So the Lab 1 was for a project which I did in my internship and it was purely on web development. But now I have migrated, okay, to what? Data science, right? So if I'm now an aspiring data scientist, I need to stay focused on data science, right? So maybe I'll be working more on visualization tools, my Seaborn, my pandas, my Plotlib and everything. That is what I needed actually, okay? Now I need to remove this Lab 1. When you say conda deactivate, what happens? It takes you a step backwards. Now, let me simulate this with your C prompt. You know C, right? You have colon, then maybe you have users, okay? Then maybe you have projects. Then here you have Lab 1. Now, when I say conda deactivate, it takes this Lab 1, it goes little step down, backwards, comes to this, again deactivate, comes to this, again deactivate, comes to this, until it gets to my root directory, okay? Now, mind you, C:/users, right? So this is by default. It will be installed when you actually install your operating system. But that was not the intention. I can actually do this again by saying change directory. I can tag this command prompt in the command prompt cd, okay? Change directory to what? To what? I put the directory name, right? To users, right? Okay. If I have gone to C prompt. Otherwise, if I'm in users, I can say change directory to what? Program. Okay, project. That's what I called it. Then / yes, or change directory to project. It comes there. Again, change directory to what? Lab 1. I'll get back here. So what happens when you deactivate? When you deactivate, the folder or the project folder is still there. It did not go anywhere. So that was not what you wanted to do, right? So you want to do away with the program. So what do you think you should do? You have to delete it, okay? So I have to delete this. So what do? Now I say conda env remove, okay? Dash name. What I'm going to remove? My environment, okay? Now, did you notice something here? The same command, conda remove dash name my environment. Now, do you see dash all? This hyphen all? Now, hyphen all is going to remove, now pay attention here. It's going to remove all the libraries that you installed. Say if you remember in the previous slide, I created an environment and I installed, say, Python 3.6. Now, the library is what is going to remove. But if I want the environment to go completely, I need to use this prompt, this command. Conda env remove dash name my environment. Okay, completely. So in this case, lab 1. And this will delete entire thing. It is not like deactivating it. It will remove it from its parent directory. Now, once this is done, I need to verify, right? So I need to do this. I need to verify whether that's what environment is removed or not. So I call this back again, conda info env this, okay, env and then conda env this. Mind you, both are the same, and we'll demo that very soon. Now this is done, and maybe you have a project, okay? Project, you call it lab 1, and you are working on a similar project. That project is lab 2. And you notice that most of the things which you used in lab 1 can actually be replicated in lab 2. Now, I want to reuse, the aim here is, I want to reuse most of the packages which I installed, okay? Reusability. Okay? Now, since I want to do that, what I need to do is, I need to clone this, right? Cloning says make exact copy. So, by cloning it, so it's like replication, right? So it depends on how you view it. If you're an English scholar, you say replication. Obviously, if you're a programmer, you can say reusability, which is a concept of your object-oriented programming. So what you do, the same way you create an environment. Did you see that? Conda create dash name. Yes. Then you call my clone. Now, why we always call it my clone, you can see this is the clone version of what you want to clone. Now let's make this simple. I want to clone lab 1, right? Yes. Now, what is the name? I can call it lab 1 clone. Does that make sense now? So, this will look like this. Conda create dash name, lab 1 clone. Clone, what? Dash clone, lab 1. Yes? So, enough of talking. Let's get into the demo section. Now, I'm going to fire off my Anaconda Navigator. Yes. Why am I using Navigator? Because I want to show you the GUI. But before the GUI, let's look at the command line interface first, right? We use CUI now, okay? So that means instead of using Anaconda, I'm going to use my what? Anaconda what? You guessed it. Anaconda what? Prompt. Yes? Now, let's get there and let's see what we have to do, okay? Now, you can just type prompt, P-R-O-M-P-T. Now, you see, I get my command prompt and I get my Anaconda prompt. Now let's look at the difference. Let me open command prompt first. Pay close attention. Can you see here? You see Microsoft Corporation, all rights reserved, right? See users, Victor, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So this is my command prompt. This is not what I want to do. So I'm going to quit this. Now, what I need is what? Guys, can you tell me? I need my Anaconda prompt. And see, now I type prompt. Now this is my Anaconda prompt, right? Now, did you notice something here? Guys? See users, Victor is there, but there's something that precedes it, right? That is called what? Base. Now, let's maximize this. Did you understand? Now, this is where we are. So what is the first thing we need to do? We need to create what? An environment called what? Lab 1. So what I will do now, can you help me? So I'll say conda create. Now, what is it? Dash, or you call it hyphen name. Yes? Oh, sorry. Name. What is the name? We are going to call it what? Lab 1. Lab 1. Okay? Enter. Now, did you see? Done? Depending on how fast your computer is. Now, you see here. Now, pay close attention here. It's saying proceed. Now, this is the location. Pay close attention here, because if you want to know where your environment is installed, you will see here it's the environment location is c:users/victor/anaconda3/env, okay, /lab1, right? Now, this is your default location. I mean, not the default, the default location of this environment. You can't change it, okay? Now, what did I just say? This is where your environment is going to reside, and you can look at some stuff here. Warning, a new version of Conda exists, right? So the latest version is Conda 4.10.0. I mean, current version is 4.10.0 now, but the latest version is 4.10.1. Please update by running this. So I will update that later. Now, what I need to do is proceed y/n. You have to type y, right? You want to create this, right? Enter. Now it's done. Did you see here? Now this hash sign says it is what all commented out. So you can activate this by saying conda activate, right? Okay. Now we have created this. Okay, that was one of the first thing in our slide, creating the environment. The next is what? Creating this environment with what? Pre-installed packages. Okay. So I'm going to replicate this. If I press my up arrow key, I will see there conda create --name lab1, right? Now, but what I need now, can you help me? So if I want to create this with what? A pre-installed package, I'll just change this, okay? Just say -n, okay, this is a short form of --name, okay? Now it's called lab1, okay? Now let's call it lab2 so that we differentiate things. So lab2 is going to have whatever I'm going to do, okay? But with a pre-installed package. So let me show you one screen at a time. Please don't forget, we have just created the first lab one, right? We created lab one, but without any pre-installed packages. So if you follow the slides chronologically, the next thing we are supposed to do was to do what? Create this with pre-installed packages. So to create that, we are going to replicate most of the syntax. We say conda create -what n, okay? Now we call it lab2. Which Python version? I'll say Python, just remember, equal what? 3.6, okay? 3.6, yes. Now I'm going to use scientific Python, scipy, equal what? Let me use an old version, okay? 0.15, okay, or it depends on how you pronounce it, 0.15.0. It doesn't matter, okay? Now watch what happens here. Now if I press enter, did you see here? A conda already exists at this. You see that? So I have already created this called lab2 previously. So remove existing environment. Obviously, let me remove that, okay? So I'm going to remove that. So this is done. Okay. Yes. So just in case you have a version that exists, okay, you might actually remove this by just following some prompts. No problem. Now let's create this again. Okay. Now when I create this, now you see, okay, it already exists. So I'm going to remove this now. I mean, okay, I don't want to get into deleting. A directory exists at the target location, yes, but it is not a conda environment. Okay, that is true. So continue creating this. So I have another one, you see, which is called lab2. But to make this simple, so that most of you will be able to follow, I'm going to call it a different name now, right? So just understand that because this exists, and I know that many of you that want to follow up with this tutorial, you might not run into this problem. So to make it simple, I'm going to exit this, okay, and then come back again and create this. So creating this now, let me call it 8a, okay. So I'm going to create this environment, okay. Instead of saying lab, I call it 8a. Yes. Now 8a, or I call it a section, better, a sec, okay. So a sec with this, okay. This doesn't exist, right? So I press enter. Fine. Now, did you see here? It says, now please pay close attention now. The following packages are not available from current channels. Did you see that? Scientific Python 0.0.0.15. Now I want to know, right, which version. Let's say the company they asked you to install this version, right? And this version is already outdated. So what do? It says now, search for alternative. To search for alternate channels that might provide the package you are looking for, you should do what? Navigate to anaconda.org and use the search bar at the top of the page. Now, what most of us will do is we'll give up at this stage, right? See, sir, I'm getting an error message. It says package not found. What can I do, sir? Now, see here, the current channels are there. Did you see that? Okay. Did you see this? That. You might not understand what these channels are telling you. But look here. To search for, now this is very important, to search for an alternate channels that may provide the Conda package you are looking for, you should navigate to what? Easy, right? So when I navigate to this, what I should search for? Scientific Python, right? I'll search for that. Now let's go there. Anaconda.org. So what I will do now, I will just go to my find, new one, find. So what I will do here is, I'm going to just type what? Anaconda.org. Did you see that? Now, once I'm in this Anaconda.org, okay, so what I need do is what? Tell me, guys. I'm going to search for what? Now, let's be clear on this. Initially, when you open this, it will ask you to register, okay? Can you see my name there? Because I have registered, now it directs me directly to where? My dashboard, okay? In case you've not registered, you will not see this. You see a different menu, it will prompt you to register. It's always good you register. Now, what I want to search for is what? Scientific what? Python. Can you see that? I'll just type what? SciPy, right? Now, I want to know which version I can actually download and pre-install when I'm creating my environment. Now, did you see here? Guys, help me out. Did you see SciPy 1.1.6.2, right? 1.6.2, 1.6.5, right? 1.4. There is nothing like 0 dots, right? Did you see that? Yes, 0 dot was there, but it is actually duplicated. I mean, it's maybe like upgraded, right? 0.14.0 exists, yes, but this is pretty old. So let's take the recent one. So 1.6.2. Let's get back there. Now, what I will do now, I will change this, scroll this up. So this is what? 1.6.2. Quickly. 1.6.2. Now, once I press enter, another problem will exist. Now, you see here, let's see. It's trying to connect to data. Now, you see here, failed with repo data, right? From current. Now, we try with this. Now, look at this. Please, guys, look here. Conflicts found. It was looking for incompatible packages. This can take several minutes. Please pay close attention to this. There is a conflict. What is the conflict? Now, the conflict is what I'm trying to look for is no longer supported on Python 3.6. Okay? Now, see here, unsatisfiable error. The following specifications were found to be incompatible with each other, right? So, these are available versions. I can use this, yes, but please look here. The Python version must be greater than 2.7 and less than this if I'm using this. So I need to downgrade the Python version. Look here, guys. If I must use 1.6, I need to downgrade the Python version to maybe 2.8 or something. But look here. If I want to use this, I can actually upgrade my Python version, right? Did you see here? 3.7 but less than 3.8. Or greater than 3.9 but less than 3.10. Yes? So, or greater than greater than equal to 3.8 and less than 3.9 for this. So, what I need to do, I need Python 3.8. So, I'm going to go back here and I change this to 3.8. Once this is done, I press enter. Now, everything will work fine. Okay, done, done, done. Did you see, guys? Now, everything is done. Okay, so these are all the packages that it will be installed at runtime. So, you see that SQLite everything. So, I'm going to press Y to continue. Yes. Now, depending on your internet connectivity, this might take a couple of minutes. Okay, at times also you might finish it up in seconds. So it's always advisable if you're downloading this, you have to be on a strong internet. Okay, don't use your mobile data for this, right? So now this is done. Okay, now we need to move to the next command, which is what? Let's know which environment that is active, right? So what do we do? By default, base is active, but let's understand which environment that is active. For now, I don't want to activate what? This recently installed environment, see ASEC, right? ASEC, to activate this, okay? And remember, I have also created an environment called what? Lab1. Now, what we do now is what? Can you help me with the command prompt quickly? What is the command? It says two things are there, right? Conda what? Info, yes? --env, right? So is it env or envs? Envs, enter, okay? Now, did you see here? Now, look at this. Base has asterisk, right? And did you see base? This is what I just highlighted. This is my recent most active what? Or you call it the current environment. Now, I want to do what now? I want to activate this ASEC, right? So let me activate lab 1 and deactivate it. Go and activate what? ASEC and deactivate it. So what I should do? Can you help me out? So there are two ways to notice, right? We say we just use now Conda info envs. Now what is another one? Which is that comes handy for me. It's called Conda what? Env list, right? which is environment list. I think this will be easier also for you to follow. Now Anaconda env list, okay, is the same thing, right? Look at this, same thing, right? There's no difference. So if you look at this, okay, and also compare it with this, is the same, right? Fine. Now we have seen the two ways of checking your environment list by using first Anaconda info envs and then Anaconda env list, right? Next, what we have to do now is what? We need to now activate this. So let me activate which one now? Lab 1, right? So what I want to do now is, I should say what? Simple. Can you quickly tell me what I should do? What is the command? Anaconda what? Activate, right? So I'll type what now? You quickly complete it. Anaconda activate. Which one should we activate? Lab 1. Okay, Lab 1. Now Lab 1 is activated, and you could literally see it has moved from base to Lab 1. In case you are in doubt, you might actually toggle this up and just check. So Anaconda env list, and you see there, and now it's no longer base that is active. See, just Axelis has moved from base to what? Lab 1, right? So since we have done this, let's go and deactivate this, right? So we can actually deactivate this alongside so that we focus on the next thing, okay? So let's deactivate this quickly. Now I want to deactivate this and activate ASEC, right? So what I will do, Anaconda deactivate. Should I say Lab 1? Any guess? Okay. So so the thing here is, you don't need to specify Lab 1, okay? Because you are deactivating this, right? And it's going to return me to which one? To my base. So if I say Anaconda deactivate, see, it returns me to the base, which is like my root directory, right? So I've come here. So now we want to do one thing now. You remember now when we deactivate, we have not removed it. How do you know we have not removed it? Let's verify. If we verify here, you see Lab 1 is still present, right? So we want to now do what now? Remove this, right? That means we want to delete this, okay? If you remember in point number 7, we addressed this, deactivating versus deleting. So I want to delete this now. What do I do? Can you help me out? So it's going to be Anaconda, right? env, okay? Remember the keyword, remove. Now what are you going to do? -- name. What's the name? Lab 1, okay? Did you understand? Now I'm going to do this, okay? It will take a couple of seconds and it's done. Removing all packages in this. Did you see that? Now let me now check whether this exists by using what? Anaconda env list. Fine. Now if you check, there is no Lab 1 here. Does that make sense? So Lab 1 is gone. Yes? Now the next thing we have to do is say I want, you see here, remember what we did when we created ASEC? We created ASEC and we actually installed some packages, right? We installed Python 3.8. If you go up here, you could literally see it in your history. Yes, we installed Python 3.8 and we installed scientific Python, scientific Python, what, 1.6.2, and then these are all the packages also we installed, right? See, scientific Python 1.6, it's also brought out this service and then bpip and then setup tools and all whatnot, right? And everything executed without any error. Now, we want to clone that. Say I want to work on a project which requires all the packages I've installed. So I don't need to start installing it again. You might say, sir, is it not only one command that you type? But just imagine you have even some developers who has worked on the project before you came. They must have installed all the necessary applications, right? So you don't want to start working on the master directory, just in case if you crashes something. So what do you do now? You need to clone that, right? Create the exact replica of that and start working on it because they have installed and pre-configured all that we needed for the project. So having said that, let's clone this now. So what should I do? I type Anaconda what? Create, as if I'm creating, right? Create what? New one, right? So I'm going to call it what? Remember what I asked? I told you I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it what? ASEC clone, right? So A, same name, right? ASEC, fine. But I'm going to precede with something again, clone. Okay? Okay? So ASEC clone, yes. Now, what am I going to clone? I have to use the keyword clone. What am I cloning? Help me out. ASEC. Yes? Fine. Now, once I press enter, okay? Now, did you see here? Source, it said, and destination, did you see it found what? 22 packages. There is no file, obviously, because we have not done anything on this, right? So we just installed it with some packages, right? So you see, the source and destination is in the same. Did you see that? ASEC, yes, and ASEC clone, fine. See what I'm talking about? And then I'm waiting for this transaction to be verified. So complexity increases depending on the size of the environment which you are cloning. Okay, so this is taking quite a time. Okay, and then it's almost done. Okay, I think it actually was suspended that time. Okay, so now with this, you see it's done, right? So we can actually see this now. If I just use this conda env list, it will not be there. Remember, it is called that my clone. Okay, sorry, it's there, but I need to activate it. That was what I wanted to say. I need to activate it, right? So to activate this now, what do? You guessed it right? So I'll just use the keyword, and you could literally see it here. It says conda activate asec clone. So I'm going to type the same thing here. Conda activate asec clone. Okay, done. It's activated. Okay, now, and if you call this up again, you see it is the what active what environment. See there, the asterisk is here. So if you remember, we just concluded with the demo session, right, where I showed you how you do that using your what Anaconda prompt, right? So how about doing the same thing in your Anaconda Navigator? That is what is left now, right? So let's get back here now and understand how we do this using your Anaconda Navigator. So what we do now is we just type what now? Navigator. You can type that. So you see there, Anaconda Navigator. Now let's wait for this to load. Okay, it's loading. All right, and this is what we'll have. So remember, we are done with the command line interface. We want to look into this by using your Windows based stuff. So this is my Anaconda Navigator, what I showed you in a couple of slides some time ago. So you see here, by default, you could literally see this. Root again is activated. Can you see that? Yes, root with channels. You could literally see it, right? So this is your root and the channels. Fine. This is what we saw. So if you now, I want to say this. Now look here. If you scroll a little down, you see RStudio is not installed. PyCharm is not installed. So the button, when I hover over it, it says install, right? See, install. But this one says what? Launch. Now we don't want to start using these applications. We want to see the environment. See applications on. Now to see all the environments, if I click this little drop down arrow, did you see here all the environments I created? ASEC clone, CNN sandbox, lab 2 clone, my environment, and whatever. Okay. Now this is one way to see all the environments that are there and see the one that is active, right? So say example, I want to activate ASEC. Now look here on my base, most of the applications are installed except RStudio and PyCharm Professional, right? Now let's activate ASEC and see what happens. Now I'm activating ASEC. You could literally see this progress bar. Now ASEC is activated. Okay, so if I go here now, you see the tick mark is now on ASEC. Now look here. Now only see data log, IBM Watson Cloud, PyCharm Community. Only these 4 applications are installed. Whereas in the root, all of them were installed except the last 2, right? But here, see these 4, they are installed by default. So I need to install this manually, including my Jupyter Notebook also. Just imagine if I want to run some programs here, okay, that requires me to use my Spider as an IDE or my Jupyter Notebook. I cannot run it here until I install this, okay. Now, this is one way to see that, okay. Another way to see it is clicking on environments. Now, once I click on environment, did you see here? All the environments are popped up. I could literally see it here. So let's say I want to change this now from ASEC to ASEC clone. Now I just click on this, same thing. Okay. Now it happened. It's okay. It's gone back there. Okay. And if I want to see whether it's exact replica, right? Or what are the things, packages that are installed and what are not installed. So if I get back to my home, see ASEC clone is enabled. Again, you see the same thing, right? Same thing. What we saw in ASEC is what we saw in this ASEC clone. Now I want to show you how to create this now using your what? Character user interface, right? So let's not feel like, oh, we are famous. Okay, now let's get here. So did you see here towards the left? Okay, down left, you see this little I plus icon. It says create. Did you see Clonos? Did you see import? And did you see remove? Okay, so now if I click on create, now it says which package do I want this to run on. I don't want R, I want Python. And did you see Python version? I can actually check. So the only version the least version is 2.7, right? Anything other than 2.7 is not supported. And the most recent is 3.8. Now I can call it a name. Let's call it now what? Tell me. So we call it lab 1 clone. Okay, lab 1. Okay. lab A. Fine. Now once I click create, now lab A is created, and by default once I create it, it activates it. Did you understand? Now I'm creating this lab 1, okay, and you see this little triangle pointing towards the right, okay, like similar to your right arrow key. So this right arrow key is pointing at this, showing that this is my current what most active see here, or my current environment. So it is created, and again if you come here, you see again by default only these 4 are installed and the rest are not installed. Now let me remove this now environment from Windows, which is pretty easy. I've selected this environment, right? So what I will do what now? I can clone it. Can I? Let's clone this. Okay. So what is the name? I'll call it lab A clone. Lab A clone. Yes. So I'll just click on create. And did you see the directory C users Victor Anaconda like that? So clone. Okay. So you can see it there again. Lab A clone. Yes. So this is what we have. Now again it gets cloned and configured and takes all the packages, okay, and by default again if I click on home, okay, I'll be able to see the same thing that was running on lab A is running on this. Now let me remove them one after the other. I'm going to remove this. Yes, remove. Okay, so you remove that and take stuff from the directory itself, right? So this is out, and you see here, okay, removing environment. Now it will load this back to my default. Did you see the control has gone back to base, what we also saw when we ran the same thing in the command prompt? So immediately I remove that, it takes it back to my base, right? Again I come back here, I can actually remove all this, right? So let's understand what we did in this class. Okay, we just concluded this, right, by showing you a hands-on session on creating environments using the command line interfaces, and as well as using the window interfaces, right? That means your graphic user interface, which we use Anaconda Navigator. Now let's understand what happened in today's class. Okay, so we started by answering the obvious question, what a virtual environment is and why Anaconda, now not the big snake but rather a distribution, followed by creating an environment in both CLI and the GUI, right? And again, creating the environment with pre-installed packages, which I showed most of you, right? And determining your current environment. It was pretty easy in both the Windows and the command mode. Followed by how you know which environment is active. Yes, by checking for the asterisk sign or checking for that right arrow key. And then we saw what happens when we deactivated an environment versus when we deleted that. And then viewing the list of all our environments, right? Yes, which we saw by using some commands. Yes, and also in Windows it was pretty easy. We ended up with cloning, and that was how it was, right, by showing you the demonstration. Now congratulations, you have made it to the last part, okay, of this lecture, and I want to thank you so much for your time and attention. It means a lot to me, and I want to encourage you to please share this with your friends, encourage them to watch as well, and I want to know of your thoughts and your opinions. It's very valuable for me. Please head straight to the comment section below and drop your thoughts. I promise I'll reply to each and every of your questions. Until next time, stay home, stay safe, and happy studying.